Okay, we have a quorum for the audit committee meeting, and Sikander, do you want to introduce our auditors?
Yeah. So Jeff is the lead on our audit, like he was part of the audit and took care of everything. And he is also working with an MWB firm, and a person from that MWB firm was also part of this audit. She is not on this call, but you can talk about Jeff. You can let us know about her, what was her part when it comes to the audit. And I believe Peter was about to join, or is he not joining today?
No, he actually had a conflict this morning, so it's just gonna be me. Sorry, you're stuck with me today.
You are in good hands.
And the room years now, so we are certainly, it's funny again, thank you.
Okay, so I can just kind of jump right into everything here then. So first off, thank you for taking the time with me today. We're just gonna be going over the results of the audit. Now, everyone should have had I'm assuming everyone has the 3-page document there, or would you prefer I share my screen?
Yeah, screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Perfect.
Page.
Right.
no, you don't have that document. Yes.
Oh, we don't have that document.
Yeah, it's just the same thing, but it's like 3-page summary of the financials, so it must be.
Oh, I
easier
see.
to follow. So
Okay.
you use screen.
Yeah, I will share my screen right now. Okay. Do you want to let me know when you can see it?
Yep.
All right. So I'll just run through. Again, this is a very brief presentation, as everything has already been gone through with management. Sikander and Noreen went through everything really with a fine-tooth comb with us, so everything has been reviewed there. We are expecting now to issue an unmodified or clean opinion. Now, that is the best kind of opinion that you can give as part of an audit. Essentially, the unmodified means that there was no material modifications to any numbers that the trust provided, as well as to any of the actual accounting standards or any of our assumptions and plans when we went into the audit from the beginning. There's no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted, whether it be over the trust internal controls or their compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, or anything like that. The trust did comply in all material respects of the requirements from the section 2925 for New York State public authorities, as well as in the Title II, section 201.3 of the New York Code and Regulations. Essentially, those are just the two laws that govern a New York State public authority's investments, whether it be your policies themselves or what you're allowed to invest in and how everything is operated. So the actual numbers wise, your net position, we saw an increase of about 20.5 million now to $1,078,000,000. Total assets amounted to about 1.5 billion this year, representing about 0.7 increase from the prior year. The increase is mainly sitting in the cash and equivalents account. Now, on the second page, which I'll just kind of jump back and forth just to kind of show you, here's all of your assets. You can see that there was a lot of kind of swings this year. We saw cash did go up, as I mentioned. Investments also went up, offset in part then by the leases getting amortized, as they should. And, as the leases progress, the total receivable should be going down, as well as then we see construction progress went up, but, depreciation occurs on all the piers and everything that's there. So depreciation caused the depreciable assets to drop. Now jump back up. And we saw that your total deferred outflows amounted to about $2.5 million. That's a 20% decrease. Now, 20% sounds like a lot, but essentially went from just over 3 million now to 2.5 million. And this is solely in regards to the pension system. So this is something that New York State gives the trust each year that simply says, basically these are the numbers, put them on your books. There's nothing that has anything to do with the trust operations, nothing you can budget for, plan for. Essentially, it's your piece of the New York State pension plan that they assign to you annually. Total liabilities amounted to a little over 43 million. That's a 4.6% increase from last year. Now, the increase was mainly in some accrued expenses, as well as your proportionate share of the net pension liability, which once again, that's an item that New York State will just assign to you annually. And when they do that, they basically take the entire state of New York, everyone who goes into it, whether it be towns, villages, schools, public authorities such as yourself, and based on kind of everyone who is involved in the plan, everyone gets a small piece, a very small proportionate share, so they call it. And again, you just kind of get your piece every year, and it varies from year to year. There has been years where it's been an asset, but most years it's a liability. It's all based on the market performance of the plan itself. We also saw some changes with your OPEB, and then overall a decrease in your accounts payable. Deferred inflows of resources were 359 million this year, which is a 3.5% decrease from the prior year. Again, this decrease is mainly due to the GASB 87 and 94. Now that is again your long-term leases. So again, as they move forward, as they progress through the terms of the lease, those amounts are expected to go down as the trust continues to kind of collect rent from based on those leases.
Could I ask you to describe again or remind everybody about GASB 87 and 94, because they make it seem like we are up here more. We've had
Yeah,
more units about this, but could you just remind people about that?
absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll go to the second page just for a reference to them. Now, you can see on here we have some large receivables as far as leases and public-private partnerships. And what GASB 87 and 94 did is they said that anyone with long-term non-cancelable leases have to put on a receivable right away for the present value of what you expect to collect over the entire term of the lease. Now, the trust, for example, has some leases that go 99 years. So as a result, you have to put on your books your future inflows that they expect over the next 99 years today. So although it looks like a massive receivable, you have a massive asset, it's something you're going to collect in pieces over the next 99 years. So it's not like it's a real tangible liquid asset right now, but it's something that still has to be disclosed, per the GASB standards. Now, it does get offset in part by the deferred inflows, which is why at the very bottom of the screen there, you see, lease rents in public-private partnerships for 55 million, 300 million, because they do try to make it offset partially there, but it doesn't always come into full swing because it's never going to line up dollar for dollar between lease rents varying from year to year, because, oh, I see a hand.
Yes.
Jeffrey, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
Oh, just a quick question for you on that. What's the distinction between the public-private partnerships, receivable and the receivable? Is that like current versus long-term? Are they the same thing?
Yes.
Or are they okay? What's the categories that fall in one versus the other leases?
Yeah, so a lease is kind of a standard lease, right? You're giving someone a right to use your asset, meaning you're renting out a building to somebody, right? So that's just kind of a traditional lease. A public-private partnership is more when it's a right to operate within there. So they're operating most of the time. You can consider it kind of an operating a park's asset on behalf of the park. The biggest one that we always kind of talk about when we look at these would be maybe it was a parking garage where you have a long-term contract in place with somebody and they're operating an asset on your behalf. And that's kind of the distinction when we think about two, is one of them is operating a park's asset and one of them is you're just saying, here you go, it's rented to you. And it's all about also like kind of the administrative involvement that the park and the trust has with it. Because if the trust simply says, here, do what you want, this is your lease to you, versus the trust saying, okay, this is what you're going to do, this is what you can do. So kind of administrative involvement / financial involvement. So that's why one of them is considered purely just a right to use the asset, and one of them is more involved in operating the parks and trust asset as they want.
Thank you.
What's the discount rate used to?
The discount rate kind of varies. What we essentially do is we use it's within your footnote, we described it, but we use a lot of times as the state's borrowing rate. Let me go to the actual, I can tell you the actual page number where we disclose them, because it varies based on when it goes into place. So on page 32 of the financial statements themselves, we talk about how we use the actual municipal market data index, and it's all based on the actual date that the lease is signed into place. So all of the leases in place that you have range from 0.89% up to just over 5%.
Yep. Okay, we can carry on.
Perfect. Okay. Next one, we talk about total revenue. We amounted this year to 74.8 million. This was a 5.2% increase from last year. It includes your general operating revenue of 41.8 million, some other operating revenue of 10.1, and non-operating of 22.9. Now, the increase that we saw with those is mainly the actual assumptions from the GASB 68 and the GASB 75. Now, a lot of that is, for example, when we take into account the ERS pension items, is a liability, let's say, goes up, an expense gets created. A liability goes down, a revenue gets created, or a negative expense gets created. So again, these are items that are outside of your true operations, but they do, still occur, and that's why the third page that I'll jump to once we finish this, you can kind of see those results year over year. And then the last bullet here is your total expenses. They amounted to 54.2 million during the year, which was a 2.8% increase from last year. And the total expenses were your general operating, 33.9 million, non-operating, which would be from depreciation and amortization of 20.3 million, and the increase mainly a result of some employee compensation and benefits. So, as mentioned, I would jump to page 3 here. So we can see your total general operating, which is your normal lease, your parking, your fees. Overall, we're relatively consistent year over year. Then your general operating expenses jumped up about 1.2 million. Again, those mainly in the area of your employee benefits and compensation. Then the other income jumped up about 2.6. Now, again, like I said, that's mainly from the area of GAS 68 and 75. But we try to break everything out here just so that the trust can truly kind of see where your operations are going, and then also those lease items, which kind of as we talked about before, are they're projected on 9 years as they get amortized, where the excess goes. So the true cash value, the true what the park's getting, is sitting up in your general operating revenue, and the other one is kind of the offset of the impact of amortizing and calculating the net present value of those leases. Then the last area here, for your non-operating revenue, we saw an increase of about $1.4 million. And a lot of that was in the appropriations revenue. And then you also have a slight jump in the air rights that came in. So I know that was kind of a quick high level. So is there any other questions with that I can help go through?
The air rights, is that direct Clinton?
Yes, the Chelsea, it was a balance, they were supposed to pay when everything was paid, so they
Oh,
were
so
supposed
block
to.
670,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
And what about the appropriation revenue? What is that?
This is city and state reimbursement,
What's that?
city and state reimbursement for the construction, so whenever we do the construction, we
Okay.
ask them for the money.
Okay,
So that basically nets out.
yes,
Right, yes.
yeah,
So technically, actually, the construction goes on the balance sheet as an equipment levy. So, and then it depreciates in the P&L slowly, so it looks like the expenses would not show in the P&L. So,
Yeah, but for cash flow wise, it's net,
right, it's
over time.
cash flow as this.
Yeah, and the operating revenues and expenses look pretty healthy. Up top, what you showed us before, which is
Yes.
not having to do the accounting treatment, but real inflows and outflows.
Right. Yeah. You mean your pure operating revenue is, again, fairly consistent. I know it's 300,000, but when we're talking about, $42 million, that's fairly consistent there. And again, general operating expense, I mean, we've all seen, whether it be, normal increases in salaries, as well as the biggest thing has been insurance. Insurance over the past year has just been skyrocketed in price. So that's why when we think about kind of employee benefits, it's always expected to go up, and this year's just been it's been crazy across the board for every entity that we've looked at.
great.
Jeffrey, were there still one-time transactions that are flowing through the financials that we should be aware of, or is everything, based on your experience on this audit on this account, is everything sort of standard recurring trust financial statements?
The majority of it was kind of standard. I mean, when it comes to the appropriations, I never want to say they're truly standard, right? Especially when they're reimbursements. So it's all going to be based on, how much the actual trust is doing. But I mean, based on past experience with the trust and how much you're taking on, I assume the majority of that is going to be continual reoccurring based on, it's not like the trust is all of a sudden going to stop working on IPers. I mean, there's always plans going on. Every time that I come out there, it seems like something has changed. And I mean, I love to see it. I love walking up and down, seeing stuff constantly is improved, constantly changed. I mean, the only things that we ever expect to really change are going to be in regards to the pension system, because that is going to vary every single year, no matter what you can do. And then the only other thing will be as those projects gets completed, kind of Sikander mentioned how they all get put onto the balance sheet, then they will be depreciated over life. So as large projects are completed and moved over, depreciation will eventually increase, but that will not be a true cash flow item. And that's why depreciation is kind of down towards the bottom, just to fully pull itself out of the mix from the general operating items. So, but as far as the general operating items go, this year was pretty kind of standard and par for the course.
Yeah, so Jeff and Sikander, there is a place here that for the 2 previous years, we had one shots that materially benefited us. Last year was Chelsea Piers, based on the Department of Finance and calibration of what their pilots see, right?
A year before that.
The year before that, and then we had payments from Gateway previously as well, but this year we did not have any of those kind of one-shot injections.
Right.
Well, we have the air rights, so it's one shot unless we hit it.
But not as big, right?
No, it's not a material, right?
We'll take the 2 million.
Yeah.
But
Yep. And so the only thing I can think of is I know you have your Amtrak payment that's getting amortized over 3 years, so that will be wrapped up in about 2 years. Because essentially, you're giving up as they're building the new tunnel over in New Jersey, so you got a lump sum payment when they were initially going to start construction. So that's getting amortized over 3 years, and that is, I want to say, Candy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's about $750,000 a year.
that's in these financials.
Actually, a little more. So this year we only had 3 quarters, so that's why it was 750,000.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Yeah, so it's gonna be closer to $1 million than next year and the year after that, and then it'll be sort of wrapped up.
Sikander, can you tell
Where it is?
where does that show up, that Amtrak payment?
Well, it shows on the balance sheet as an unearned revenue, so it's unearned revenue on the balance sheet.
But here, that's summary.
Which page?
In the
In
page
the P&L?
19 that we were looking.
Yes, it's part of the regular lease revenue, so it's included in the lease revenue.
Oh, it's in the lease revenue. Okay.
So
Yes.
So there was the one-time payment, and then there's the one-time payment for the easement. And then there's a continuing payment for use of the property during construction. So there's 2 separate contract payments. Yeah.
Right, they paid us a lump sum, but it's being accounted for each month.
Yes, I had.
Yeah.
So.
Got it. Okay.
Jeff, can you talk to us a little bit about changes for gas fees next year?
Sure. So the biggest thing that's coming next year is going to be called GASB 103. GASB 103 is going to change none of the accounting itself, but it's going to be changing the presentation around significantly. Essentially, what it's going to do is it's going to cut your MD&A probably in half. Essentially, what it's doing is now all MD&As are going to be sectioned into 5 specific areas, and then it's actually laying out exactly what can and cannot be in each of those areas. So the MD&A is going to change significantly, and then also in the back where we have your required supplemental information, meaning the amortization of the New York State pension plan, for example. Now we actually are going to have footnotes to those. required submit information. So it's all disclosure based, which is changing, but it's just kind of as an FY that is coming in the future. Now it's effective as of for anything year ended June 30th, 2026 going forward. So we're going to implement it probably 100 times before before we get to you next year. So I mean, we'll have Pier templates already kind of all ironed out, and which is why we'll end up doing is working with Noreen Sikander, sending over what we assume should be the new template for the trust in advance. Probably a month or two before we even come on site, just so we can start working through it to make sure that we have a nice clean copy going into this, so that there won't be any delays with financial statements or anything along those lines. But yeah, the biggest thing is that they just want it all cleaned up so that they all look similar, and then they want more footnotes to kind of describe what's going on in those back schedules.
What MD&A stands for?
Management's discussion and analysis.
Management discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
in the MD&A, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So this is in the text.
Yeah.
Right, so it doesn't change the
The face of the
numbers.
question.
Got it.
But the trust has also been to describe what is the bridge for the and our we for capital maintenance money and all of that. So that's the kind of thing that we won't have liberty to do anymore.
Right.
Because it's a format, the format.
Right, so the gas is gonna, exactly, so we will now, from our perspective, we sort of lose an opportunity for some of our financial storytelling, but we understand the context of the whole.
Right.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
accounting, we are
You can
atypical
put
to
it in the
start.
board of directors.
Yes,
Right,
correct, yeah, yeah.
right. And do you lose it, or do you just have to truncate it and parse it out in different ways? But the salient points, the differentiators will still, if the idea behind it is to improve disclosures and reporting and make it more standardized, surely it doesn't take away the ability to sort of cover the most important points and differentiators in the footnotes.
There's going to be, well, the footnotes aren't really changing. In the basic financials, those footnotes aren't going to change. So what the actual MD&A itself wants to be more change based, meaning it wants you to, which you already do a lot, is saying, okay, 2026 number was X, 2025 number was Y. Now, why did it change? And goes into detail only on certain changes and why things changed, as well as going to have a more emphasis, maybe looking at the budget itself, comparison to a budget. So, and then as far as, where the park likes to kind of highlight everything that's going on within the park, that will be in certain areas. In the back of it, there's going to be a little bit about you, but it's more going to maybe want to move some of the focus into the normal footnotes. For example, we talk about in note 1, what is the trust? What's the purpose of it? So maybe we can expand some of those footnotes to kind of carry some of those wording into it. But again, it's going to make it more standardized within the MD&A itself, which is still the biggest change that's coming as a result of the GASB.
Thank you. I understand the concept of the pension liability. Thinking of our portion share, is that an actual contingent liability, or is the state standing behind that?
So the state essentially has, the massive pension plan itself, right? The New York State pension plan, and based on essentially what they do is they think of, okay, these are all the state employees' salaries that are in the plan each year. Based on that, the trust gets X percent. Your percent, for example, when I take a look at the back, on page 42 of the financial statements, it actually shows that the trust piece of the entire pension plan itself is 0.02% of the plan itself. And on that page, we all see that in 2026, the plan itself was funded just over 93%. And you can see back in 2023, it was over 100% funded, which is why in that year you actually were assigned an asset to put onto your books. But this is each year the plan gets audited. The plan has different actuarial assumptions, different valuation techniques, and then you just get a report that says, here are your numbers, put them on your books.
But
And
for the
everyone,
But for the plan participants, is the state the actual backstop? From an accounting point of view, obviously, we have to carry our share of the liability.
Yeah.
I guess the question is this actually, if you're a participant in the plan, are you guaranteed by the state? And we're just, this is accounting, and obviously the state comes to us, or is this an actual direct liability of the trust?
Or worse, we join several with other.
Oh,
states.
that's your,
right. So the only liability that you have, as far as it goes, is your annual bill that you get, and where it says here's your current year contributions. That's it. That's the only thing that the trust is actually responsible for.
We had a invoice every year, like around $1 million. So that's the portion we actually keep it current, so we keep on paying it. So this is just for the books, but we fund our portion of the pension by giving them a lump sum in December. They bill us. This is in addition to the regular insurance.
Yeah, so we don't state managers, like when you retire, you don't go through our HR, you go right through.
Stand all that, it's not
Something
convinced.
different, yeah.
It will
Be responsible if, I don't.
You keep talking about an entity that doesn't, there's no such thing as the New York State pension system or even ERS. I mean, I believe what you all are in is New York Common. And I'm just not convinced that New York Common really is truly backstop in the state. Like, I don't think, I'm not sure it matters and what we're the tiniest cog in
But
it.
what would be the circumstance in which that would create a risk?
State pension could go bankrupt.
Right.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
right now, it's 93% funded.
Yeah.
That's probably top, that's great.
Right.
But it could be 50% funded, and all of a
Right.
sudden, a lot of people will retire and kind of,
But they won't come after us.
That's the question.
That's the question. I kind of think they.
So we actually.
I don't know
So
for sure,
with
but that's. my
respect to
question.
the historical discussions about our
Right.
reserves, the position of the board has been like, that's sort of a set aside assumption
Right.
in an eventuality.
Mhm.
So that
But I
happens.
think we should ask the question of the pension. Say what happened if.
Right. I'm sure it's in the plans of reduction.
Right, so they can respond and
Right,
say, look
right.
at
I've seen
page,
that.
whatever.
I've seen that happen with unions where you as part, right, but and that's a smaller scale of this, but even so you're joint and severally liable, so if they go bankrupt, right?
I don't know that's ever happened. I
Right,
don't think it ever
right,
happened.
but anyway, it's an interesting question. We should find out. It's an empirical answer.
We should
And
find
we may
out.
not have a choice. I don't know. Do we have a choice?
We don't have a choice,
Right.
No, but we should.
Just to be clear,
Understand.
the choice is probably worse, because the other choice would be New York City ERS, and that's definitely higher risk than New York
Yeah.
State.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if only, because it's a smaller pool.
Right.
What else? Any other contingent liabilities that, I mean, we always talk about the terrorist stuff, and like, is there anything else that you're looking at in contingencies?
There's nothing else that we noted that we put on there that we consider something contingent. I mean, we always talk about the idea of, hey, as collective bargaining agreements and contracts go up, there's always a chance that maybe there's something, only because we've seen in the past some places where then large retros go into place, right? Which resulted in kind of a large liability coming up. But as far as then the contingent, as far as a legal aspect, we haven't seen anything else aside from, as you mentioned, we know the terrorist item is always, I mean, it's been outstanding now for a few years, but there hasn't really been any movement on it from last year.
That's the fun part. You confirm legal liabilities at the sort of end of the audit, just when you issue.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Potential legal liabilities and claims right before you issue the documents.
Yes. So what we do is we talk both in-house here as well as we talk to a few of your outside counsels that you use, and we our standards require us to speak with them within 2 weeks of issuance date. So we always have to be we are given a 2-week buffer, basically.
And so, we don't have any claims other than one small contract claim, and everything else covered by insurance. So really, our deductible was $25,000. So everything's paid by the insurance of all the claims we have.
So, based on your analysis of the numbers, I mean, what is the biggest exposure you think the trust has?
Well, to be honest, everything is operating very well. I mean, your net position is increasing each year. When you take a look at pure cash and investments compared to your general operating expenses, you have essentially a few years worth of general operation expenses just in pure cash and investments. So I don't see any significant, areas of concern that we would kind of bring up to your attention. Everything appears to be operating well. All controls are in place and operating as designed. So that's why really we say it's all kind of good news from our standpoint, from a pure financial standpoint. There's always things that, I guess could come up, but as far as the general operations and compared to how the trust is doing on financial health standpoint, it's doing fantastic.
Jeff and his partner mentioned that since they've been working with us for a number of years, the relative stability that we've had as something that jumped out at them, if I'm saying that correctly, Jeff.
Yeah, no, everything has been very stable. I mean, it's continued to kind of improve and grow. I mean, you've been able to, again, have positive change in, your cash and your net position while funding all those projects, while continuing to do work and kind of serve the purpose that the trust was designed for. So, it's kind of a great thing to see.
That meaning you have to rotate off. That's usually time.
Exactly.
How many more years do we get for you, Jeff? You and
Well, I'm not the partner on the job, so I'm not actually the rotating one. Rob, the person who wasn't able to step in today, he's, I think this is his third year. So I think he has 2 years left.
Yep.
And then he's going to rotate off because that's what the requirement is. The actual partner on the engagement does have to rotate every 5 years. So I think this is his third year, 3 of 5.
All right. Are you ready to call the motion? Yeah. All right. So based on the draft independent auditor's report and financial statements for March 31, 2026, as shared with the audit committee at its meeting of June 29, 2026, the committee hereby accepts the audit report for fiscal year 2026 and authorizes the trust to proceed with filing such final audit report in accordance with New York State requirements. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Great. We have an audit report ready to go. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Then I'll be working with Sikander and Noreen this afternoon in order to get everything finalized and out the door for you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
yeah.
Bye.